All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Stewart. I'm the Therapeutic Recreation Coordinator for the City of Reno. And this is the Spinal Cord Injury Lunch and Learn, brought to you by the City of Reno, the VA Sierra Nevada Healthcare System, Renowned Health, and the High Fives Foundation. Today, we're excited to welcome Dr. Sia Machella from Renowned Health. She's going to speak today, and please make sure you're asking questions through the group chat. I will be able to field all those questions either during the chat or after. But I'd love to turn it over to Dr. Sia Machella.
Thank you, Sean. My name is Elisa Machella, and I'll be talking about empowering you to be heard. So self-advocacy in health and beyond. But before I start, just a little bit about me. I guess this isn't working. You can click. I have nothing to disclose. Next. As a child, I was actually a recycle advocate before recycling ever started. And then in college, I went to Cal and I earned my chemical engineering and chemistry degree. I actually went to law school after that at GW. You can click next. And then click again. I received my medical degree, osteopathic, in Las Vegas, did my PM&R residency in Houston, and did my spinal cord injury fellowship at the University of Utah. And just an interesting fact, I've been to all the territories in the United States. Next. So what's health advocacy? Anyone have an idea? No? Okay. Well, you can click. We often think about, what are we getting? What kind of medications are we getting? Is this the right type of medication? Is this medication keeping me healthy? But before we get there, we have to know what medications to give you. So often you need imaging. Click. So did you get your x-ray or did you get your CT of your abdomen to see if you're having any obstruction? But really, to even figure out what testing to do, you really need to know what kind of illnesses could you have. So next, you want the correct diagnosis. So is the doctor even thinking about the possibility of autonomic dysreflexia or neurogenic bowel bladder, the typical things spinal cord patients have? You can click next. Other things we have to think about are our equipment, DME, like wheelchairs have to properly fit to prevent most common complications. If you have a wheelchair with the brakes that are breaking and it's not stopping and you fall off your wheelchair, you get skin breakdown and you have issues going there. So that's also health. Next. But then other things are accessible housing. Can you get into your house? Can you get into your kitchen? Can you get into your bedroom? That affects your health as well. And next, how about that ride to your doctor's office? That's also health too. And then the last thing and most important thing is money, right? All this costs money, and how are you going to pay for these things? If it's not insurance, what is it, So simply put, health advocacy is advocacy that keeps you healthy. It's not just what happens at the doctor's clinic or at the hospital. It encompasses pretty much your whole life, right? So now that I have your attention, let's talk about the objectives of the talk. So first, I'll review the basic types of advocacy and then introduce some historical landmarks in disability advocacy. And then click. And last, I will close with ways to empower you to continue to be a health advocate. Next. So here is the advocacy spectrum. It really has 5 main types of advocacy. We'll first talk about self-advocacy and individual advocacy. Next. So in self-advocacy, you're working with the current system we have to optimize your health. To do this, you need to know the resources that are available to you, how the system works, and how you can use those to optimize your health. And with this information, you can also teach others about your health needs. So for example, Does anyone carry their autonomic dysreflexia card? Ooh.
Don't have one.
So we should get you one, but this is a simple way to advocate for yourself because you have a card that kind of tells you what may be happening to you, and it will give the person who's assisting you with an idea of what may be happening to you, although it might not be the situation you're in, but at least they'll be thinking about it. Overall, self-advocacy really depends on you to know your resources, the system, and what is best for you. Of course, no one knows everything they need. So you work with a team, and that's why you go to different people. You have Sean here as the right therapist, but there's a whole big team that you have at your hands that have all the information, and by putting it all together with the health experts, you can have your health optimized. Next. So here's individual advocacy, and this is really advocating for someone else, but that's only one person. So for example, things that I do is when my patients don't get the equipment they need, I talk to the insurance company, ask them what's going on and how I could assist in rectifying the situation. So I'm working to help one person. Similarly, you people who are online or here in person, you're learning information, and when you share that information to other people, you're giving them the knowledge to be able to self-advocate for themselves. So that's also individual advocacy. But really, that's working with the system. So what happens if the system doesn't work for you? For example, Medicare has a rule that if you can walk within the home and do all the stuff on your own in the home, you do not need a wheelchair to be out in the community. And that's part of the system. No one can break the system unless you do what I call upstream advocacy. So next, upstream advocacy is these other three that we haven't talked about, which is community advocacy. That's when you work within your local community, like Reno, Washoe County, and you can work to educate the local community. Simple ways are things like volunteering as a coach. You have opportunities to talk to other people and empower people to become self-sufficient. There's also policy advocacy, where you kind of work with a larger organization, maybe like a specialty organization. A lot of people like to be part of United Spinal or similar type of situations, and you can apply pressure to the political process, like asking for legislation to be passed, getting more money from Medicare dollars, changing the wheelchair rules, various things like that. And then lastly, there's systems advocacy, which is more like a social movement to change society. For example, independent living for people with disability is actually a relatively new thing that started in the 1980s. Have you heard of Lex Frieden? Next. So Lex Frieden is known as the chief architect of the American with Disabilities Act. He actually had a spinal cord injury as a result of a motor vehicle collision in 1967. As a freshman in college, he was learning electrical engineering. So instead of completing his degree, he had to go to rehab. He went to TIER in Houston, and he met some wonderful people. And less than a year later, he tried to go back to college. I'm not sure which college, but they wouldn't let him because they said they won't take people in wheelchairs. So that kind of sparks his interest, and since then he's been a disability rights activist, and has been really working on a lot of things, and most notably is the American with Disabilities Act. Next. So the Americans with Disabilities Act was actually in debate in Congress since 1988. It's been lingering there for several years. So a group of activists started the Wheels in Justice campaign in 1990. And as you can see in this picture, in this case, people in wheelchairs could not get onto this Greyhound. So they parked themselves in front of the Greyhound. as a movement to show that things need to be accessible to people who don't have the ability to go up 4 sets of stairs, whatever the sets of stairs were. Next. And this kept on going throughout the 1990s until March 12th, 1990, now called the Capitol Crawl. And in this case, activists got out of their wheelchairs with individually or with assistance and crawled up the stairs at the Capitol. In this case, you see a person who's 9 years old, who was adamant she will go all the way to the top, and she had a card in her pocket to give to the politicians at the top. Next. And here she recounts what she remembers from that event.
I remember when we were trying to get the ADA passed, and I wanted to climb the steps. I want to climb the steps, but it said, "Go for it." So I got out of my wheelchair and I started climbing. Well, the next thing I know, I've got 50 cameras on me, and I've got mics all over me, and it's like the hottest day of the month of March, and I'm just, and I'm like, I'm like 8, 9 years old, and I'm going, water, 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 and I've got the little pamphlet in the back of my pocket that we're supposed to hand over to the politicians to get the ADA passed. They say that it was the image of me climbing those steps that was the final decision to get the ADA passed. And I mean, I had to.
So what is the American with Disabilities Act? It was signed by President George H.W. Bush on July 26, 1990. And the basic rights is, probably something that was assumed but not provided. And it basically created a cultural shift where people are not expected to stay at home or in the hospitals. This is saying that people should be allowed to fully participate in society. And it's really important because there was basically a hidden message that no one talked about, just assumed that everyone just wanted to stay at home, more so institutionalized. They didn't even make it possible to be at home. Next. So how about now? Anything changed with COVID-19? Because originally when first COVID-19 started, we were really concerned that patients would be, or people who are on ventilators at home end up in the hospital, and their ventilators would be donated to other people that maybe people thought were more worthy of ventilators, which, I was really concerned with. I haven't really heard much about that. There's a couple things that have happened, but some interesting things that I would say we probably did not expect was some shift in movement to see that we can adapt society to the needs of the community. So telemedicine has really made it so that people could see their doctors or their therapists without going to the office. So that reduces transport ability, missing your ride, forgetting, getting that ride back. The appointment takes too long, you miss your ride, you have to wait for the ride to come back. So that's been great. But as COVID has kind of died down, so to speak, and restrictions have lifted, telemedicine has been kind of on the edge of being lost, and Medicare is thinking about revoking that ability. So there's one thing to think about. Also, how about working from home? I know a lot of people have tried unsuccessfully before COVID to get ability to work from home, saying various different things that people will not do their job. But in reality, you see COVID-19 and people are doing their work, things are getting done, and it provides more accessibility for those people who were not able to work. And actually studies show that working keeps health, so it keeps you healthy. But is that again dying down because COVID is, restrictions have been lifted? So that's something to think about. Another thing is, you know, COVID-19 has lost a lot of social support, meaning that caregivers, there's less full supply, increased costs, trying to get someone at the same dollar per hour is very difficult. Medicaid covers a certain minimum. It's hard to get people to want to do that when there's higher paying jobs with less work. So just a lot of things to think about with COVID-19 and how things have shifted to the bad and to the good, and some ideas we can think about advocating for. And I'm sure you all have some issues that you have reoccur over and over again and wondering, you know, how you can get that fixed. Next. So now the question is, what can you do? Next. And really, you can participate in advocacy in any of these aspects. You can self-advocacy, individual advocacy, community policy, and even systems advocacy. And just to break it down for you, how I take a look at it is using the problem-solving method. Next. First, you define the issue. So what exactly is happening? What's the problem here? Explore ideas. And then third, oh, sorry, you can click for each one of those. Third, select options. And then last, apply and evaluate. And then you recycle this situation. So anyone have an idea that you want to talk about? If not, I've come up with wheelchairs because a lot of us use wheelchairs. You can, so an issue, can I get the wheelchair that I need? Can I get the accessories to the wheelchair that I need? Can I get the standing frame, standing option of the wheelchair? Can I get the ultralight wheelchair? All these things have certain rules in the current system. And why is your wheelchair being denied? Is it a piece of it? Is it, you know, you haven't done A before B? We need to figure out what exactly the issue is. Next. Once you figure out the issue, you kind of have to think about how to problem solve, which are the research components. First, how is it that you get a wheelchair? You have to get seen by a specialist who knows how to take care of custom wheelchair orders. Why is insurance denying it? Is because you just ordered a wheelchair? Is this a sports wheelchair? Request insurance for coverage. That means talking to them, getting on the phone. A lot of work that I'm sure all of us have gone through. Once you figure out what the issue is, maybe the physician needs to provide one-on-one discussion with the insurance company about the medical necessity of the certain item of the wheelchair. How about looking into other resources for coverage? Like instead of insurance, is there a grant available? If it's a sports wheelchair, do you have a foundation that provides something like that? If it's something that will just break the rules, because the system, like I mentioned before, Medicare doesn't allow certain types of situations to have wheelchairs, then we have to work on changing the system, which is a higher difficulty. And then educating the community on why wheelchairs protect your health. That could be an idea to think about, because if you can get other people who are not in your situation to understand the importance adding them to your advocacy panel will get change in the system as well. And then talking to your legislature or to Medicare. So just recently there was a standing system, seating elevation, comment period that Medicare was asking. I worked with several organizations to put in a comment on why there's medical necessity for that kind of thing, and really going out and educating people why all these things are important to you and people in similar situations. Next. So then once you explore your ideas and research, and then you hone your problem, you want to select an option or options and then try it and see how it goes. So it's kind of like a trial and error thing. And then usually you don't make it the first time. So you have to redefine the problem based on the results of your application, and then you do it over. So it kind of goes back to my recycling days. And that's what I do a lot of the time. And then, so lastly, really our conclusion is empower yourself with information. Without the information, you can't really understand what the problem is and how to go about getting the things you need for your health. Next. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. It's not, sometimes being shy is difficult, and I am that way too. I'm better one-on-one, but if you don't advocate for yourself, you're actually not advocating for other people as well. Because if they don't hear it from the 100 other people, and then the first person comes in, they'll say that is the first person and no one has ever undergone that problem. So advocating for yourself also benefits you and your community. Click twice. So you can get involved, big or small, being here on virtually, learning the information here in person, that's all the beginnings of advocacy, because that gives you the information. And next. And then who do you want to talk to? Because really advocating is really about networking. So you talk to your friends, talk to your mentors, talk to any organization. It doesn't have to be a spinal cord injury organization. It could be a softball league. It could be any of those things, because that's your life. That's what you go through. And they don't realize that little things that they do may be affecting big things in your life. Next. So networking is key. Being in meetings. Social media is a new thing now, but I'd be careful with that. Meetings in person seem to work a little better, but virtual works as well too, because there's chat functions. So feel free to send messages. We're monitoring it. And then again. And then once you get on these networks, for example, not pushing anything in particular, but United Spinal does send like a whole bunch of emails. They will send you opportunities to respond. A lot of sending emails to your congressperson or participating in, I forgot what it's called, Wheels on Capitol Hill. All those kind of things really help you and your community. And the last thing I've already mentioned, but really get to know your politician, because they're the ones that help you make change. So now it's really, what do you talk about once you find someone to talk about? And it's really what you're passionate about, right? If you're passionate about sports, if you're passionate about people returning to work, or if you're passionate about mentorship, that's something you should talk about. And you really need to research. So the lovely thing about Google is you can find everything, but you can also find things that are not useful and not correct. So make sure that you're doing proper research and have facts to focus on. Experience and anecdotes gets you in the door, right? It tells you someone that this is important, but if you don't have those facts to back you up, then you're not going to get the ball rolling. And, you're going to find a lot of people that you disagree with. So it's good to be loud, but don't burn those bridges. It's you can be professional and disagree at the same time. And that's actually very important, because without disagreements, there isn't change. So now, just sharing with you some things I've done, and really it kind of shows you that anyone can do anything from self-advocacy all the way to social change. And it really starts with you. So I'm opening it up to questions, open forum, anything you want to talk about.
There is one question about, I know the ADA started in 1990. Has there been any revision in the 32 years since?
Oh,
I know, huge question.
I don't think any directly, but there are other laws that kind of supplement it, like ability to get a whole accommodations in schooling. It's called the IDEA Act. I can't remember the exact things, but the ADA was very broad and general, and they didn't even define what a disability is, because in 1990 disabilities, you don't know what 2,200 disabilities are. So I think kind of like the Constitution was very broad. It was really the forefathers of the ADA was pretty thoughtful in trying to keep it broad so that you don't need to work on it, because it was pretty hard to pass.
Well, it just goes back to your advocation, like being an advocate for things that you need to change, or things that you want to change, with it being so broad, getting specific with the things that you need.
Mm-hmm.
I know transportation is a huge thing for what I like to fight for.
Exactly.
Airplane travel is obviously not the most wonderful thing that's ever existed for a wheelchair user, right? Yeah. There's programs out there. Yeah. But
even local transportation too. Once you get out of big cities, trying to find transportation to places that you don't have to wait for, you know, or even have any. So.
Any other questions from our online audience? Alrighty, well, thank you everybody for coming. I just want to remind you that October 19th, so it's always the third Wednesday, from noon to noon 30, noon 45. Every third Wednesday, we'll have an in-person at Evelyn Mount Northeast Community Center, as well as streaming this. So check the Reno Adaptive Facebook page for our next topic. And hopefully everybody has a wonderful rest of your little bit of a rainy Wednesday. All right, thank you for joining.
Thanks.